Everything in life is complicated. Every story, every situation you're in is complicated. People are complicated. In 2011, Lara Logan survived a brutal 25-minute assault by 200 men in Cairo's Tahrir Square. She thought that was her darkest moment. She was wrong. Years later, one false report about Benghazi destroyed her $2 million career at CBS. These are Taliban attacks. This is part of our new military strategy. But that's not the real story. Logan claims she was targeted for exposing the truth about powerful elites. Now she's speaking out about secret meetings, media manipulation, and why they really wanted her silenced. Her revelations about what happened behind the scenes will change everything you thought you knew. Lara Logan was born on March 29, 1971, in Durban, South Africa. At the time, her country was in deep pain. Apartheid had been tearing lives apart for decades, and 1971 was one of the worst years yet. Over 3.5 million people were being forced out of their homes. The government used a law called the Group Areas Act to remove families from entire neighborhoods just because of the color of their skin. In Durban, where Lara was born, this meant homes were destroyed, streets emptied, and lives shattered. She came into the world just as protests and resistance were starting to grow stronger, including the pseudo-uprising, which would explode just 5 years later. Her father was a businessman. Her mother stayed at home, and they lived a middle-class life in a country where most people had no rights at all. From the very beginning, Lara was surrounded by injustice, and that shaped how she saw the world. In the 1980s, she studied at Durban Girls College, a very elite school founded back in 1877. It only accepted a few hundred girls, mostly from privileged white families. She graduated in 1989, the same year Nelson Mandela was close to being released from prison. The school had Olympic-level swimming pools, and Lara was a strong swimmer. She trained in clean, perfect facilities while millions of children were banned from even using public beaches or learning in safe schools. Every day she lived in that bubble. She saw the painful split between privilege and suffering. The school's motto was in Latin and said, "Without God, all is in vain," echoing the twisted ways religion was sometimes used to excuse racial separation. Even as a teenager, she was starting to feel how strange it was to live in comfort while others around her lived in fear. Her family broke apart during that same time. Her parents divorced while the country was under martial law. The government had declared a state of emergency, and over 25,000 people were locked up without trials. Families like hers were cracking under the pressure. Even in white communities, Lara began switching between homes, learning to live with instability. That feeling of never being fully settled stuck with her and became part of why she later connected so deeply with refugees, people torn from their homes by war. It was during these years that her emotional strength started to form. She needed it. The country around her was burning, and her own home was splitting apart. By the late 1980s, she was doing something few girls her age would even think of. She started working as a waitress and even posed for swimsuit photos to make money. She was just 16 or 17. South Africa's economy was falling apart under international sanctions, and many families were struggling. Lara wasn't ashamed of what she did. Those photos would later become controversial, showing up in British tabloids years later. But for her, it was survival. She knew how to use what she had to get ahead, and she never apologized for it. She also learned how media worked, how stories could be shaped, twisted, and controlled. It was her first taste of how powerful images could be. She began reporting at 17. Most people her age were worrying about school dances. Lara was standing in the middle of riots. Durban, her hometown, had become a hotbed of violence. The Police used brutal force to control protests, including whips known as jambak. She saw them beat people in the streets. She knew kids her age who were being arrested, some never seen again. She wasn't just reading about apartheid in a book. She was watching it happen every day. That horror changed her. She started to believe that telling the truth, being there and showing what was really happening could be part of the fight for justice. In 1988, she entered the University of Natal and studied economics. But soon journalism pulled her in. She began working part-time for local newspapers, first the Sunday Tribune, then the Daily News. By the time she graduated in 1992, she had written more stories than many full-time reporters. She didn't even study journalism, but it didn't matter. She had already proven herself. She mixed school modeling and reporting like no one else. That strange mix gave her an edge. She could talk to anyone, politicians, soldiers, victims, and make them feel heard. In 1992, when she was just 21, she joined Reuters Television as a senior producer. That was the same year South Africa began its slow, painful move away from apartheid. It was a dangerous, chaotic time. She wasn't given soft stories. She was dropped right into war coverage, especially across Africa. She later said there were no supply lines, no safety nets, no help coming. You learned to survive or you didn't. That trial by fire shaped her in a way no classroom ever could. She saw wars where nobody cared, where no one came to help. After that, most other conflicts felt easier. She had already been through the worst. In 1996, she broke a huge story back home. She exposed deep corruption inside South Africa's police forces. It wasn't just one crooked officer. It was a whole system built on lies and power abuse. This came just 2 years after the country's first democratic election. The country was still fragile, still healing, and her story